What I was going to present to you is what we think is the main threat that we are dealing in our country regarding freshwater resources, not only drinking, but also for all kind of uses that we need. So I just going to make some short introduction, giving you some background, and after that discuss something about the state of situation on eutrophication and cyanobacteria on surface water sources, and at the final something about virus and bacteria on groundwater. So I want to thank all of these faculty members from my university. They are researchers from the science faculty, and they are the ones that really did the job because I'm just a messenger. So when we talk about water resources, we have to take in account the basin approach. So geographic location for our country has to do with, in surface resources, has to do with La Plata Basin. We are located at the, there, at the southeast part of South America. And regarding the La Plata Basin, downstream the La Plata River. So for us, it's very important, as I said, the basin approach, because every activity on the basin, on the catchment, has its consequences on our resources. So this is really important. We have in Uruguay this tradition of having abundant and good quality water resources. That's what we think, or it was what we thought until some years ago when problems start to appear. And what the other background important for this topic is that we have an economy that is traditionally based on agriculture and livestock. So most, 72% of land in our country is dedicated to livestock uses. And if you take into account dairy and forage and rotation with crops, mainly rice, because we are one of the world's main producers of rice, it gets almost 86% of the land. And also the contribution of agriculture to our GDP is really important, getting something like 12% if we take in account also industrial related with agriculture. Regarding uses of water, we use mainly water for irrigation. That's 86% of the withdrawals. Little percentage is used on industrial uses, and public supply takes in account almost 9% of the water uses. If we look carefully into public supply, we can see that the number of services, number of cities or villages with public supply, under groundwater supply, supply, it's 73% of the services. But if we look at the volume, it's only 28% of the volume supplied. So we are in this situation that just or only 2.6% of the population still lacks of access to the safe water supply. That is the population that lives in rural areas, because in urbanized population has already access to this public supply. Well, if we talk about surface sources, what we identify as the main threat to our freshwater resources is eutrophication. As you know, this situation came as a result of the oversupply of nutrients. And of course, this situation came as a consequence of the uses in the catchment, right? So we have different sources for that supply of nutrients, diffuse and point sources. But I want to make a point about not only the uses, but the practices, the managing practices of each kind of use. Because in Uruguay we have this situation with runoff from agriculture that is important, because the applying of fertilizers is mainly do it by just spreading on surface. So when the rainfall comes and runoff occurs, it takes a lot of the fertilizers at the water courses. Also, the practices with the manure produced by the cattle, they are also not used for fertilization. It's just spread all over the place, and especially near the water courses where the cattle goes to watering. So something has to do also with water waste infiltration, because we don't have very clear normative about what quality has to have the water to infiltrate on terrain. And regarding to point sources, the situation is that we have most of the wastewater has a poorly treated, is poorly treated or even untreated. It has something like a pre-treatment system, and just only the main cities has a secondary kind of treatment, and just 2 or 3 related to the main drinking water source in the southern area has a tertiary system of treating. And of course, urban runoff has to do a lot with this contribution, because there's no treatment of urban runoff at all. So if we look at the map of our country, all these points are sites of evaluation on hydrobiological indicators. And what it seems, what is being diagnosed by the limnologist in our country, is that we had the first symptoms of eutrophication just in the middle of 1980, when Salto Grande, one of the hydroelectric reservoirs, was filled. And the same decade, we had also another bloom detected on the south part on Santa Lucia Basin, also because of the filling of a new reservoir that is the main supply of drinking water for over 2 million people in 2 million persons in Montevideo and all the region. So since then, we have, they are seeing an intensification of the blooms, the appearance of new species also. The frequency of the events is increasing, and also the spread of the situation on all the territory. Something that was localized in some places, now it's occurring in all the country. Another effect that limnologists are taking into account is that they're seeing that the buffer effect of the lakes and the water courses is decreasing. That means it takes less supply of nutrients or a little change in the boundary conditions to make a really important change on the situation of the water course. Just a little change on conditions make to change the state of the water course. Well, regarding the Santa Lucia Basin, some studies that have been made there indicates that of a group of catchments, microcatchments within the Santa Lucia Basin, that is the basin that supplies water to a big reservoir that is the drinking source for, as I said, 60% of Uruguay population, that's the ones we are in Montevideo and the metropolitan area, they found that a good correlation between the quality of the water courses analyzed and the uses on the basin. So if you see on the levels of conductivity, you can see two different groups there, showing that the northern water courses in the northern part of the basin, that are mainly used for overgrazing and also lately for forestry, are less mineralized because of the levels of conductivity and more oxygenated, as you see there, and than the ones on the southern part that has a use more agricultural and urban. Also, if you look at the diversity, the abundance of the biodiversity, you can see that the northern courses have more biodiversity, also related to the use. Some further publication about that was made mainly by Guillermo Chalar, also shows a relation between an indicator that he develops, taking into account benthic invertebrates, and the intensity of the land use, showing how this indicator decreases as the intensity of the land use decreases. And he also shows us some limits where you can see the trophic state of the water courses. Another study taking into account intensity of land use was aiming to understand the responses of the aquatic systems to also the climate variability and according to the impact level. So there's a group led by Mariana Merov studying two near catchments, one with intensive farming, that was the one that has higher impact, and the other one with extensive overgrazing, that was the one with a lower impact. And the main result, or one of the results that they came to, is that in what it has to do with phosphorus, with total phosphorus, both of the systems that are circled here has more load taken to the water than these are the one systems in Uruguay, than similar systems in the temperate zone. Yeah? You have here is the intensive system in Uruguay and the extensive system in Uruguay, and you can see both of them apport high loads of total phosphorus to the river. And the other result that you can see here is that the amount of phosphorus, total phosphorus, if you look at the amount of total phosphorus and of the diluted total diluted phosphorus, is very similar, showing that the principal part of the phosphorus came from runoff, not from sediment. And this is causing some controversial between the agricultural community and the limnology community, because up to this time, we were all pretty much convinced that the principal guilty for eutrophication was erosion, the sediment production. So the main focus on preventing eutrophication and taking care of water quality was what you are doing with your soil, with your management plans for your soil. But it happens, it appears that you have to take a closer look of what you're doing with your fertilization practices. Well, regarding cyanobacteria, The group that studied this in Uruguay is led by Silvia Bonilla and Luisa Ubriot. They are doing a lot of research, and this particular that I'm showing has the objective of an assessment of the environmental variables and the ecophysiology of the most frequent toxic cyanobacteria in the country. In order, what they want to do is to define biomarkers and guide values for environmental monitoring. So again, if you look at all the places that they have information from the public water company, from the electric water company, from projects of the university, they came up to now with its preliminary results with a matrix of data of over 3,000 data from 1989 up to last year in Lautic and Lentic systems. They have all that indicators and also environmental variables. They found that the most frequent cyanobacteria in Uruguay was the Dolichospermum and Microcystis. They found blooms in all the systems studied, and they found that the worst situation was on the Black River, here, where the reservoir for hydroelectric power are located, on the Uruguay River, where there's also another reservoir for hydroelectric power, and at the Rio de la Plata coast near the city of Montevideo. So if you look at this map, where it shows the indicator that the World Health Organization gave, the limit that they gave us, high risk impact on recreational water, you can see what I was told you. The worst places or the worst systems regarding this indicator are the one that I told you. They also found that total phosphorus is which explains a lot of the variance of the cyanobacteria biovolume. That's the relation that you find here. And the temperature, another ambiental variable that they were measuring, explained for the differences in genus. Well, they are studying also, they are trying to develop a simple method of quantifying blooms of cyanobacteria. They want to develop and to validate a method based on in vivo pigment fluorescence and also visual observation. And they're aiming to train, after that is validated, to train the technical staff of the water treatment plants that are the ones in contact with the river, to use that method and to develop a protocol for monitoring, aiming to achieve something like an early warning system. Well, regarding groundwater, in many, as I told you before, in many areas of Uruguay, groundwater is the only source for human consumption and for other uses. And it was a traditionally considered safe source. So in which it is rural areas, they use it for any use without any treatment. It's not the situation with the public supply. They gave chlorination to the water. Also, we have that the legislation in Uruguay requires only bacteriological analysis, as Fernando was telling us before. In Uruguay, it's the same situation. No virology analysis is mentioned in legislation. So, in groundwater, the main threat to our source has to do with also agriculture, with dairy farms. It's some places with a pretty difficult management of and practices with water. Septic tanks leaks. These are a source, very important source for contamination. Then proper location and construction of the wells, and also the failures on the sealing of the wells. So some study that is being led by Pablo Gamasso and Rodney Colina from the north section of the university in Salto has to do with finding or studying viral and bacteria contamination in groundwater in a particular aquifer in that region in Salto, in the northwest section of Uruguay. They want to study this contamination by bacteria and virus. They perform monitoring in 44 wells bi-monthly. And they also want to learn about what are the mechanisms of transport of virus on the soil up to the aquifer. This study is focused on virus that causes gastroenteritis, and they want to relate it, the presence of this virus with the outbreaks of gastroenteritis affecting mainly children in the region. So they perform a screening campaign searching for bacteria and viral contamination, and they found everything what they was looking for. They found, of course, fecal coliforms, and regarding virus, rotavirus and adenovirus. And some results show that not everything that you find one, you have the other. So you can find virus and not bacteria, you can have bacteria and not virus, or you can have both. If you look at the probability of finding each one of the situations, you can see that they are behaving as independent variables. So if you remember, legislation has nothing to do with virus, you are just looking for bacteria, so you are missing half of the situation. There's also some signs of showing seasonal behavior of this microbiological contamination. And what it happens to is that behavior as independent variables is when you look well by well. Well by well, they are behaving like that. But there are some indications, just unpublished results, showing that this is a scale problem. If you look at on another scale, could be some relation between both variables and with others, like precipitation, mainly precipitation. So thank you again for your attention, and I want to thank again all the faculty members that contribute to this presentation, and thank to you.